Okay, folks. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody had a great, weekend. I want to begin by acknowledging we're in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional, the unsurrendered land of the Mi'kmaq people. We at the Council and the municipality acknowledge the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory. I believe that we're all treaty people. Also, I want to recognize the 400 years of more than 400 years of African Nova Scotian contribution to our community. Councillor Stoddard, you were with me yesterday at Akuma, a very cool afternoon, like cool in lots of different ways, but cool. It was a very positive announcement yesterday. Approval of the minutes, folks, September 25th. Moved by Councillor Wayne Mason. Second by Councillor Kathy Daigle-Gammon. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. The order of business. Madam Clerk, any changes?
There have been no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Thank you. Anybody else? Does somebody want to move the approval of the order of business as circulated? Councillor Mason.
Quick question before we do that is, I understand that a new bill is coming from the House. There may be an opportunity to discuss that. Is that what's happening here? Was there an announcement about to happen? No, we'll talk about it in camera at Council rather than at Executive.
Yeah, I don't think there's any new bill coming forward at this point, other than what's on the table specifically. So.
All right, thank you. Thought there might be an opportunity already here, but that's fine. I'll just move
we're
the
hearing
agenda.
there's some kind of an announcement today, but don't know what that is. All those in favor of the order of business, raise your hand. Thank you. Those opposed, that's our order. Business arising, calls for declaration of conflict. Motions of reconsideration, rescission, deferred business, tabled matters, none. Correspondence, Madam Clerk.
No correspondence received from the clerk's office.
Thank you. Petitions, colleagues?
No petitions as well.
No petitions, presentations, none. Public participation. Is there anybody, there's nobody registered? Is there anybody here that wishes to speak? Is there anybody here that wishes to speak? Is there anybody here that wishes to speak? Thank you. Reports. 13.1.1. The District Boundary Review Phase 1 electoral reforms requiring legislative amendments. We have with us the most distinguished the most distinguished Liam McSween from the clerk's office. Liam, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of Executive Standing Committee. Happy to answer any questions. Like you said, the report is in front of you. This is a report that outlines the path to legislative amendments required for the district boundary review, phase 1. A number of items that came out of that review. So happy to answer questions on that report.
So, Liam, this is the same review that looked at the boundaries, right? And we put a lot of thought and effort into the boundaries. There's some other stuff in here that's a little bit juicy as well. Just tell us what the process is for us considering this and what happens after that.
So thank you very much. There, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, during the boundary review, conducted in 2 phases, as you remember. The first phase of that review looked at HRM's governance structure. And when we went out to do public engagement for that, we heard very clearly from members of council and from the public that there are several electoral reforms that were out of the scope for the boundary review project, but very much governance issues. So they are listed in this report, but items such as the inclusion of designated or protective seats for specific groups, like African Nova Scotian or Indigenous representation, reducing the voting age from 16 to 16 years of age from the current 18, extending voting and candidacy rights to landed immigrants and new Canadians, the use of a ranked ballot or runoff ballot system, and adding permanent residents to the list of electors to vote in municipal elections. Currently, no municipality in the province of Nova Scotia has the ability to do this. It would require various amendments to the MGA or the Municipal Elections Act to do that. So what we have outlined here is the process to bring those items forward if council and Executive Standing Committee chooses to explore those options. So essentially, that's requesting legislative amendments from the province to that legislation, and that is done by, as you well know, through making that formal request through a letter.
And so thank you. This, the recommendation here is to forward this to Halifax Regional Council. I guess I have a question. I feel like I've been on council for a while. It seems like very early on in my term in office, we asked the province to allow us to extend voting rights to permanent residents. That was a motion I brought to council that I feel strongly about. Incidentally, Ray Ivany felt strongly about back at the time when we were trying to encourage immigrants to come to Nova Scotia. You know, we're not. There is something in here about students. We didn't include students or what was there's another one, refugees. We talked about people who had permanent resident status, which I think is very similar to landed immigrant. I mean, now the terms kind of get mixed up a little bit. But so my question would be, if we wanted to do that, we could discuss it at council and ask you to consider that. Then there's other things, the age of voting and designated spots on council. But the process now for us is this mainly to send this forward to council and have that discussion. I think council need to look at this all together for sure.
So absolutely, council. This is the way that the recommendation is structured is to send this to council as an information item. But the alternative recommendation in this report would allow Executive Standing Committee to take action on any of these, to make a recommendation to Regional Council to explore those in further detail, if they so wish. So Executive can have the discussion here, and if there's something that comes out of that debate that the Executive feels should be forwarded to Regional Council, it can happen there, or it can be forwarded to Regional Council, and it can be brought forward as an information item brought up on the agenda various ways.
John?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you to the committee, so if there was something in specific that you wish to recommend to Regional Council, rather than an alternative, it would be better if it was an amendment to the main motion, given that we're forwarding this on to council in any event. So if you wish to make a specific recommendation to take some action.
Right. So I think we had a motion recently where I guess it was on meeting dates that we forwarded to council, but we did make an amendment here before it went to council on the basis that we don't need to repeat that discussion. But I do think that this is something that council needs to consider. It wasn't executive committee, it was council that we brought the permanent resident motion to. And it passed, I think, almost unanimously, one vote against it at the time. That was 2014. I remember because I had to leave high school to come to the meeting. That's how long ago it was that we did this. And, you know, we've had a couple of governments since. I've been to law amendments since, or legislative, was it law amendments? I can't remember what it was. It was one of those relatively ineffective legislative committees, specifically on this issue again. And the committee members, including members of the now government, said, yes, this is something that we should do. I feel kind of strongly about this, the permanent residents. We're not talking about people who arrived here yesterday. They still have to follow the rules of anybody else who votes in a municipal election. And permanent residents, they access our healthcare system. They're working. They're parts of the community in every single way. It just takes a long, long time to become a citizen in this country, or has over the last number of years. This is not something where you can come here and vote a couple of months later. So that's why I feel strongly about it. So, but if it needs to go to council, that's fine. If there's anybody else that has an interest in that, maybe we could amend it. There's a number of other aspects here. But I guess I just get a little frustrated that as a province, we talk a lot about the importance of new Canadians. This is an opportunity. We're not going to have floods of people coming in. We're not going to have 100,000 extra people voting. This is something the clerk's office at the time told us we could do on our own. The recommendation and the staff report still refers to the fact that staff still recommend this. So anyway, I think it's something we should be looking at. I'll go to Councillor Mason. Maybe you can get the motion on the floor since I've been stumbling around on it. Take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Too many windows open. All right, so I'll put the motion on the floor, and then I have, unsurprisingly, an amendment, given the excellent lead in there. So I'll move that Executive Standing Committee forward this report to Halifax Regional Council as an information item.
Seconded, Councillor Russell. Councillor Mason.
All right, so back to the too many windows open, forgive me. All right, so there are two things here that strike me. One is, as the mayor just said, about permanent residents, and I know Councillor Stoddard is here to talk about that and feels quite passionately about that. And I agree, I was here back 100 years ago when I was still in short pants at the time when we voted to ask for this from the, up till last week, asked the province to give us the ability to extend the vote. I want to recap for people what a permanent resident is, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. From the Government of Canada website, a permanent resident is someone who has been given permanent resident status by Immigration Canada but is not a Canadian citizen. Permanent residents are citizens of other countries. A person in Canada who's temporary, like a student or foreign worker, is not a permanent resident. Refugees who are settled from overseas become permanent residents through the government-assisted refugee program or the private sponsorship of refugees program. Someone who makes a refugee claim in Canada does not become a permanent resident at that time. So there is a long process, and a permanent residents can get social benefits that Canadian citizens receive, including healthcare. They can live and work anywhere in Canada. They can apply for citizenship. They pay taxes and respect all Canadian laws. So it is pretty much a very significant, as I said at the time in 2014 when we first debated this, when I first knocked on doors in 2011, 2012, I was shocked how many of my neighbors around, especially around the Liberation School area, were not residents, were permanent residents. Lots of the people who came up in the Shambhala movement, and also a fair number of folks who were, there was this one couple who I'd seen around community engagements for the 20 years I'd lived in the neighborhood, and they're like, oh no, we're draft dodgers. We're still permanent residents. And I'm like, amazing, but they've been paying taxes to HRM and to the province and to Canada for a long time. So I'm going to put an amendment on the floor about that. And then the other one is the Mi'kmaq seat, which I'll speak to after I put the amendment on the floor. So what I would suggest is that we strike as an information item and add and recommend Regional Council direct the Mayor and CEO to request the Province of Nova Scotia revisit allowing permanent residents to be allowed to vote and to give the municipality legislative permission to consider a Mi'kmaq Council seat subject to consultation and agreement with Mi'kmaq representatives. So moved. And so I believe the clerk will be able to put that up on the window.
Does somebody
So
second that?
Patty did.
Councillor Cuttle, thank you.
So while that's being put up on the window, it might be there now, there it is. So the Mi'kmaq seat is a separate issue. We can vote on these separately if we want, but I thought we should just get them both on the floor because I doubt there'll be a lot of debate about it. When we did the Culture and Heritage Resource Plan, we did a lot of consultation, and as the Indigenous liaison for council, I got to go to a lot of meetings and meet with people from the historic hereditary Grand Council to the elected reserve band councils to other groups like the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq or the Mi'kmaq Women's Organization and the Friendship Center. And what we heard over and over again was, we think there should be a Mi'kmaq seat in Halifax. And so the question is, what does that look like? And the model could be what we used to have with the school boards, where people could opt to vote for the First Nation seat or any number of other boards that used to have those. So I think that given that we've heard very strongly from the Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs on, through the entire structure of representatives of the Mi'kmaq people, that this is something they'd like to explore. I think that that's something we should also ask the province for. So I'd ask for your support on both of those. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stoddard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree 100% with Councillor Mason. Permanent residency is defined as a person who has acquired but not lost pursuant to the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. It can take up to 4 to 5 years after the application to receive it. I have a large number of permanent residents in District 12. Permanent residents are issued legal documentation from the federal government, such as a permanent resident card, record of landing, and confirmation of permanent residence, to be used in circumstances that require proof of permanent residency. I have met residents in District 12 that have their permanent status, that have jobs here, buy houses here, and help our economy. They pay taxes and should be able to have a say in who their municipal councillor is. A simple showing of their legal documentation would be proof of their ability to vote municipally. And as I said, they strengthen our economy. I'm very passionate about that, as I said, because I have a large number of permanent residents in District 12. And unfortunately, when I go door to door, they say, unfortunately, they are unable to vote municipally. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Thank you very much. I'd appreciate it if this could be split, separating the vote on permanent residents from the vote on the Mi'kmaq Council seat. I am in complete support of the vote on, of the idea of permanent residents being able to vote. They are tax-paying citizens, or they are taxpayers rather, and so it would be, it would make all the sense in the world for them to have a voice at the table. In my experience on the school board 20 years ago with a designated seat, I have experienced the challenges of trying to balance the advocacy of representing the population in a geography versus the population of some individuals that are scattered across all of the geographies. And in order for the individual representing the population scattered across all geographies to do their job effectively, they need to become a much more vocal advocate for that population over the others. And that's not dissimilar to what we do representing all of the population within a geography, except in the manner in which that advocacy often goes, and this, there are some who believe that this ultimately led to the demise of the school boards. Not that I'm suggesting that it would lead to the demise of council, just that the challenges I don't think have been worked out to allow for advocacy of the population across geographies instead of the population within a geography. So I will not be able to support the second one, and would suggest that the Executive Committee consider very carefully what would happen if we have someone in that role who is more of an activist instead of a representative of equal voices across the municipality. Thank you.
Oh, I'm a little confused there. I see Councillor Morse, I see Councillor Cuddle in Councillor Morse's seat.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm seem to be locked out of all my computers here. Yeah, to Councillor Russell's comments about, an activist versus a representative. I mean, I think that is something that could happen in any one of our seats. And so I don't see it particular to the Mi'kmaq community. And I think, in anyone who steps up to serve on regional council and be a representative for the people of this municipality, we all have a responsibility to the municipality as a whole, and to act in, the best interests of everyone. So, but I do think that having that voice as part of our discussions and deliberations is an important one, and it's also an important one in a step to reconciliation. So, I don't mind splitting the motion here, but it is something that I will be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate seeing the motion split between the two, and we'll support each one. My concern might be a little bit about the impact of choosing one special interest group. What about African Nova Scotians? What about Acadian population? What about the other special interest groups? So I just worry about choosing one and not looking at all. And so maybe that's a conversation that will happen at regional council and people will bring forward. So look forward to that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just looking very quickly. I can't find it, but just as a side note, I appreciate those concerns raised by Cathy Daigle-Gammon, and I thank the comments from Councillor Cuddle. The legislature of Nova Scotia, the House of Assembly, voted, I'm not sure if it was when Premier Savage was there or whether it was immediately after. It was either Ham or Savage. The legislation exists right now that a Mi'kmaq seat can be taken in the House when the Mi'kmaq community decides that how they're going to do that and that they're ready for it. The offer exists, and the Premier is responsible to provide a update to the House every year on the relationship between the province of Nova Scotia and the Mi'kmaq. So there's actually tremendous precedent about that in Nova Scotia already, and I think this is mirroring that rather than going off in some kind of brand new unexplored direction. This province has been working on these before we even had an idea about what truth and reconciliation might look like. We've been talking about how to build stronger relationships with our treaty partners in the Mi'kmaq. So, what that would look like would require a lot of conversation. Nothing about us without us is definitely something that would have to happen here. As far as the other groups go that were mentioned by Councillor Daigle-Gammon, that is something that's discussed in the report, and it's something we've heard before, but those groups historically also have been able to get seats on council through the regular electoral process and also aren't treaty partners. Like, there is a different relationship with the Mi'kmaq because of the treaty, I think, than there is with other groups. So not that I'm necessarily against that specifically, but right now, if we had one African Nova Scotian seat and it was done like the school board used to do it, where you got to opt in and just self-identify and vote for one or the other, then we would actually have less African Nova Scotian representation on the council right now than we would if with the people who got elected in the districts that elected African Nova Scotians. So anyway, so I will support both, and I think that it is in line with where this province has been going since the mid-90s. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cuddle.
Thank you. It is an interesting discussion, right, about representation, but I do think Councillor Mason makes a good point in that the Mi'kmaq were the original people of this land. We are a Mi'kmaqi, and it's, while it's important to have diversity of representation and to make sure that we have diverse voices providing, input into the things that we do here, it is a different relationship with the Mi'kmaq. The Mi'kmaq were kind of the original people. The rest of us are all settlers, whether we're Acadian, whether we're African Nova Scotian, whether we're Scottish. We're the settlers. And I think for me, when I put it in that context, it makes how we consider and engage with the Mi'kmaq it's something different. And it's not just about diversity and representation. It's about an acknowledgement of the treaties we've signed about the original people of this land and about how we work together moving forward. So, I really welcome this discussion. I think it's a very important one. It's a very nuanced one. And, I think it's one that, deserves to have a fulsome discussion. So Again, I'll continue to support Part 2 of the split motion as well as Part 1. I look at Spryfield, I've got so many newcomers and the same experiences. We were saying, and when you go around knocking on doors, you realize just how many people are here as permanent residents who own homes, who pay their property taxes, who work and live here, kids are going to school here. And I think that if you're paying property taxes, that, you deserve to have a voice. But that also extends to people who are renters and, all the residents of our municipality. So I look forward, again, to supporting these, but also having this more fulsome discussion at council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have the amendment is on the floor. It's in two parts now. You ready for all those in favor of Part 1? Okay. Those in favor of Part 2? Those opposed? Okay, that's carried. All right. So we have an amended motion. Is there any other discussion? On the main motion as amended, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. That will go to council. Thank you, council. Thank you, committee. Okay. Yeah. Motions, we have one issue in camera. Does somebody want to propose that we go in camera for discussion? Councillor Cuttle, seconded by Councillor Russell. All in favor? We'll go in camera. Okay. Does somebody want to move the item from in camera?
I move that the
Mason?
Executive Standing Committee, 1, adopt the recommendations as outlined in the private and confidential staff report dated October 23rd, 2023, and 2, direct that the private and confidential report dated October 23rd, 2023 be maintained as private and confidential.
Second by Councillor Daigle-Gammon. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Cuddle?
No, I was just buzzing in to move the motion.
Councillor Stoddard, did you have something you wanted to bring forward before we close that?
Thank you,
Councillor
Mr. Mayor. I would like to thank the committee for putting up with me and attending this meeting. I do have a couple of corrections that the clerk might want to look at. On page 3, I believe it's the...
This is on the previous
I'm
motion?
sorry, on the previous motion. Pardon me. It states that this was done on December 21st, 2022, and it should be December 21st, 2021. And also, to take out the references to the school board elections and replace it with the updated terminology. And one more, there's on page 5, second paragraph, there's a space there which I think could be fixed. So,
Okay, you're not making a motion, you're just suggesting this for staff's consideration?
yes.
Katie, have you
Absolutely.
make note of that? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. All right, notices of motion. Our next meeting is November 27th. If there's nothing else, I will seek adjournment from the meeting. Councillor Mason, we are adjourned. Thank you.